Okay, sweet. I think it's recording. Hi, I'm Maxwell Benson, and this is my Modern Creative Agencies campaign presentation. That's probably not the best name for it, but I can't come up with a shorter one at the moment, so here we are. I guess I should look at the camera. Sorry, this is my normal computer, so I'm not completely used to the the setup here, and so yep. Anyways, so let's get started. So the first agency I decided to talk about is NW Ayer and Son. Now, they opened in 1869 and were open for over 130 years, which made them America's oldest design firm for a long time. Unfortunately, they did close in 2002, which kind of makes this a little bit weird of one to present on, especially for a recent campaign. But don't worry, we'll get to we'll get to my justification for still choosing them there, just because I think they're interesting for this reason. They owned and operated a newspaper, and they also, of course, did designs for all sorts of things, from cigarettes and other newspapers to other things that we'll get to. So, like I was saying, they did some for cigarettes, especially Camel's cigarettes. They came up with the whole "I'd walk a mile for a Camel," which I think a lot of us have heard. Maybe I've heard a lot of because I like to watch older movies. I don't know. They also came up with the "Diamond is Forever" motto for De Beer, which is horrible name for a company that sells diamonds, but they came up with it, and it is still in use today. AT&T, they did the "Reach Out and Touch Somebody," which again is, you can tell, a little outdated, but still pretty good. And they even came up with the iconic Morton Salt Girl, who's still on all the Morton Salt stuff if you go buy some. They've kind of changed the style of her a little bit to make her less uh, Norman Rockwell style, but she's still around, and she's still on every single can of Morton Salt that you can get. So yeah, they kind of just made a big name for themselves over those 130 years they were operating. But the one I'd like to, the Pacific campaign I'd like to talk about is what they did for the U.S. Army. Now, in the 1980s, they came up with the slogan for the Army, which would be all you can be," which is kind of, I like it a lot, actually. It rolls off the tongue, and it's really fun to say. They used the slogan from the 1980s until 2001. It was the Army's longest standing motto. And although NWA Air and Son collapsed in 2002, last year the Army decided that they were going back to this logo, which I am highly in favor of because their current not logo, their current motto is not very good. It's Army of One, which is just not a very good motto, I'm going to be honest. I think the "Be All You Can Be" is really nice, and it's iconic. It looks so good with this black and yellow color scheme they go with in a lot of their things. Unfortunately, it is no longer NWA or Son that's in charge here, but I thought it was interesting how, even though the company died, they're still using those. They're going back to using that motto. I thought it was really interesting. So like I said, NWA and Son actually did, fall apart. Uh, Basically, like, their struggles started even before they first came out with the "Be All You Can Be" motto. 1960s, art was really evolving a lot, and they could not keep up with the smaller companies that were doing better things. There was some big controversy with Vietnam in the 70s, and then the 1980s when they were actually making stuff for the army, that was more controversial. Because anytime the government's paying for something, it's going to get a little bit dicey with whether or not it's good for the government to give money to private companies. So they were actually got banned from government contracting. They eventually merged with McManus Firm, which is a massive firm that controlled a lot of graphic design companies and advertising companies, and they completely dissolved in 2002. Here's a picture of their building, which is a really nice building, though it kind of looks sad now with all this gray coming off of it. It was a really nice, Art Deco style building that was built in the 1920s. So too bad they don't exist anymore, but nonetheless, their logo is still around. Um, yeah, it has been a very successful marketing campaign, and it actually has been the Army's most successful motto. Every time they start using it, recruitment suddenly ticks up. The 1980s, they had a lot more recruitment than they had at any other point in time, and most recently, they actually saw some of their best year in recruiting since like the 2000 like 6 or so. So the next one I'd like to talk about is Whedon and Kennedy. And sorry for Wyden. I could never decide how to say that, but Wyden and Kennedy. They haven't been around for as long. They've been around since the 1940s, and they're one of the largest independent design companies in the world. They come out of Portland, which is, of course, kind of the art center of the U.S. If we're being honest, I know it's New York if you ask people, but I don't know. I know more art people from Portland personally, and they've worked with all sorts of big companies from Nike to Coke to Honda to ESPN to Chrysler to Bud Light and more. And of course, the more is what we're going to talk about here because I wouldn't spoil myself in the title page. You see. Anyway, so let's get into it. So the one I'd like to talk about that they did is Old Spice. So Old Spice has been around since 1937, and it was known for years as a deodorant, antiperspirant, or what's the word I'm looking for? Hygiene products for older men. It was definitely not in any way, new or exciting. It was something you got for your dad or your grandpa for Father's Day. Uh, they weren't like falling apart, and they weren't like completely unsuccessful. But there was definitely a wider audience that they could have turned to. And so actually, I found this old ad, which kind of shows off what they were made for. And like, look at this ad. It's clearly something from like the 60s. I'm gonna say the 60s. Yeah. Also, that's a $3 can. Oh, and I found this very nice aftershave they used to have. They used to have them in the glass bottles. I wish they still had that, but unfortunately, here we are. But yeah, so eventually they turned to W and K. I'm calling them W and K because Wyden and Kenny is really hard to say. All right, so now we get to the great revival of 2010. So WK saw the path forward in kind of like, like leaning into the humor, appealing to the younger folk, if you will. And so they dropped the now legendary What Your Man Could Smell Like advertisement, which featured Isaiah Mustafa, who was originally known as a actor and former football player, and a pretty good one at that. But now I think it kind of shows how successful the campaign was because he is now known as the Old Spice guy. Like I look at him and I think of the Old Spice guy. I think everyone's seen this ad because it's so awesome. And this ad was very successful, went completely viral on the internet, and did a very good job of targeting a younger audience. Uh, their marketing was basically focused on just being loud and using strange but like again loud humor, which of course is one of the fundamental parts of advertising, being loud and noticeable and easy to see. Uh, so they've gotten really abstract with things. Of course, you can see the centaur over here, and it was very appealing to the sarcastic people, the young people, all the people taking to the internet. And even now, I think that all of us are happy to see an Old Spice commercial when like the Super Bowl's on. You know, that's it. You always know you're in for something good. So, did it work? Well, I think I've already answered that, but it certainly did work. Old Spice is now the most memeable and honestly one of the most popular brands of men's hygiene stuff. Their humor and over the top everything about them definitely helped them to that extent a lot. They definitely were not the first people to use that kind of strategy, but I think that they've been one of the most successful ones. And I think that they definitely helped influence the way forward for a lot of people. To kind of help show evidence of how successful they were, I entered my closet and got to my deodorant, shampoo, and body wash shelf because I collect all the different flavors. I got the one with the dragon and the one with the octopus, and I got the tiger and the wolf, and I have another tiger, and I had a lot more, but I decided not to bring them. I promise I'm not weird. I just stock up on shampoo when it's on sale. Yeah. But yes, I would say that's been a very successful campaign, and it has definitely affected me financially in ways that I will never recover from. So, now the final company I'd like to talk about is Carmichael and Link or Carmichael Lynch. Sorry, this is the first one that's not and something. It's just Carmichael Lynch. So Carmichael Lynch is a pretty small agency compared to some other agencies, but they do fit into a larger conglomerate, which is the Interpublic Group of companies, which just is how corporations work, I guess. They are well known for making a lot of quality work, especially with the company that I want to talk about their campaign with. They are also known as a brand with a conscience. A lot of their stuff is about, like reforestation, helping the world, making more equality, getting people to the voting polls, all sorts of stuff. Like they're very humanitarian for a creative company to be. Well, actually, creative companies are normally pretty good, I think. But yeah, and they've definitely made themselves a very unique brand of being thoughtful, but still selling stuff because they're good. So, their notable works, I think, include their Blackout the Vote one from, I believe that was 2020 when that was most in play. Basically, like, there was a disproportionate number of black and people of color who could not get to the polls at the time, and so they were like encouraging people to like give them extra time off so they could get to the polls for sure. Other than that, they've done a lot of environmentalist stuff. Here's an ad they did a while ago for firefighters. That was during the California wildfires, but they also helped in the Australian ones. And of course, the turn off your light bulb in your bathroom when you're not there because that's not good for the environment. So, but the ones I want to talk about is the Subaru. The Subaru They Lived campaign is probably one of the more famous ones that they've done with Subaru, and so that's the main one I'm going to focus on. And I think most of us have probably seen the advertisement, though you might not remember it off the top of your head. I remember actually our teacher in in high school driver's ed showed us this video just because it was really good and because he was kind of trying to stress the point of like how bad car accidents could be. So it kind of covered a very taboo topic, which was dying in car accidents. When you're advertising, especially for a car, you don't really want to talk about like death. That's not a good way to go. But they did, and they did it kind of focusing on how good Subarus were at protecting people inside of them. Uh, they showed off how safe they were by like pictures like this still shot from the video. Like you can see the crashed Subaru in the background, but they're all alive. That's pretty good. Enough said there. So let's see. However, that was not their only collaboration with Subaru. They have done many, very many, and all of them, I think, actually donated to some kind of charity or fund or resource collection. So, other than the They Live campaign, they've also most recently done one for reforestation that's kind of been coinciding with the selling of the Subaru Forester, where like they plant trees. I think the current number of trees they planted is above 50,000, and that's all in like California, where there were all the wildfires a couple of years back. They also did a campaign on that was called "Beautiful Silence," which is a really nice video that I encourage you to look up. It's like it's gonna sound really bad. Like the a kid had a deaf father, and they used a Subaru to get up to a place where they neither one of them could hear, so it was kind of like a nice experience for them both. They also did the Let's Do That, the Share the Love, which I is a big enough campaign that like I reference in my day to day life when I'm like encouraging people to give me something. And of course the Dog Tested, Dog Approved, which donated a lot to uh, animal shelters and did a lot to help dogs, and of course just gave us the wonderful videos of dogs getting to drive around in cars because I personally really enjoyed that. Anyways, and that is the last slide. So thank you very much. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to scroll back up. Thank you very much for watching. I hope it was entertaining, and I hope you could hear me well because this is not my normal headset, and so hopefully it worked well. So